On this special live episode of the Roots and Reflections podcast, recorded at the 2024 IHLA convention, I sit down with the co-founder and vice president of Tropical Forest Products, Jordan Dery. Founded in 2017 by two brothers around their family's kitchen table, Tropical Forest Products has quickly become a well-established wholesaler of domestic and exotic hardwoods with locations in the U.S. and Canada. Our conversation dives into Jordan's humble beginnings in the lumber industry, taking a leap of faith to start Tropical Forest Products, forming strategic partnerships, and all of the lessons they've learned along the way. Now sit back and enjoy my conversation with Jordan Dery. All right. Hey, Jordan, thanks for joining me today on the Roots and Reflections podcast. We're here at the IHLA convention in Indianapolis. So I kind of want to start, like I do most of the episodes, start from the beginning. You got into the hardwood industry when you went to the inspector training school in 2013. Is that right?
Yeah. So I started at Goodfellow. They were my stomping grounds where I went to the yard. I learned how to grade. I piled lumber. I worked on the grading stacker. They were really, gave me a great opportunity to get into this business that, I'm forever thankful for. I had a great experience at Goodfellow, and thereon I went to go do my grading course in Quebec. It was a 15-week program that they had in up north Quebec. It was all in French, and I'm an anglais, as they say in French, so it was really tough to try to relearn how to speak French almost, because I was living in the States for a bit. My dad lived there, and I came back, and I was never really like big into French, but being up north in Quebec, you really had to force yourself to understand, and their dialect that they have over there is completely different than, what I was used to living close to Montreal. Their French was completely different, and I actually had a couple of guys translate for me because there's just some words whenever the teachers were speaking, I couldn't understand at all. So, it was a great opportunity. It was a great school. Hats off to them, because even the teachers, even though they could barely speak English, they really wanted me to learn everything that was happening. And even though they knew I was going to be a salesman at Goodfellow, they really wanted to make sure that I also knew how to grade lumber and take that experience and have that, tool that I always will have for the rest of my life to be able to grade lumber.
So you worked with Goodfellow for about 3 years?
I was there for about 3 to 4 years.
So what do you think your biggest takeaways were from those kind of the start of your career with Goodfellow?
So the biggest takeaways I would say is, Goodfellow brought me into this industry. It allowed me to meet some beautiful people. Hell, I met you because of Goodfellow, right? Me being there, when you're at Elam's, and I bought that machine from Amy for the first time, it set, such an effect that, Amy then became a good friend of mine, and she brought me into dinners and gave me contacts and everything like that. And she was always been a good friend of mine for the past, 11 years that I've been doing this. So my biggest takeaway from my experience at Goodfellow was I learned a lot at a very young age, to develop my skills. And I built some incredible relationships because of, being with them that carried on for the rest of my still going career.
Sure. So, I think your story starts to get interesting, when we talk about the origins of Tropical Forest Products. So I read that you took a trip to Asia, I think, in 2016, and that was sort of where you had this revelation. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, pretty much how it went. I mean, when I left Goodfellow was really, I came in one morning, I saw my twin brother was working with me, Jassi, who still works with me now, and I just looked at him and I said, yeah, man, I think today I'm going to quit. I'm just not happy here anymore. I feel like I could be doing better things. And he's like, you're not going to quit. I was like, no, yeah, like I'm quitting. And he's like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, watch me. I'm going to go downstairs to HR and I'm going to quit. And that's exactly what I did. I walked down, I quit. And then that same day, I booked a one-way ticket to Asia. And I spent about 3 months over there, had the time of my life. And I was at a bar in Malaysia and, I was drinking, having a good time and drinking with these guys. And they're like, what did you used to do? I was like, oh, I used to sell lumber. And they're like, oh, well, we actually supply Kerwing. It's a species of lumber. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. They're like, oh, you want to come to our sawmill? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went to go visit. And, the next day they're like, hey, would you want to sell lumber? I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. And I kind of called up Justin that night. I was like, Justin, like, we're starting a lumber company. And he's like, no, we're not. I was like, no, we're going to do this. And he was like, we'll see. And I got back about, 2 months later and I kind of decided, I was like, I'm going to leave Montreal. I moved to Toronto and that's how Tropical Forest Products began.
So did you have kind of a clear vision early on of what Tropical Forest Products would be, or is it just you had this opportunity to sell, import lumber and sell it and just going to build from there?
There was zero vision at all. I mean, I knew that I wanted to stay in the lumber business. I love the relationships I built in the lumber industry. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I have so many good friends. I'm going to shout out to Jordan McIlvain from Allen McIlvain Lumber. He's been a close friend of mine in the industry. And when I, had this, discussion and saying, hey, like, I kind of want to do my own thing. And he was like, hey, whatever I can do to support you, I will. But just, you got to provide me with good lumber at good prices. And yeah, I'll buy from you. So that's pretty much how it began. And it was just always to just do it on my own, not have somebody, breathing down my neck or having, that sort of boss, and it started off small and it just kept going,
So tell me about one of my favorite stories from talking to you, and I've read it in a couple of articles about Tropical Forest Products, is sort of the origin story is the family kitchen table.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
I mean, so originally when we moved out there to Toronto, so we had, a kitchen table that was literally the workspace. It was me, Justin, my twin brother, and Jassi, who we call our adopted brother. It was just the three of us for the longest time. We were working, out of our house, in our underwear, and we'd wake up and get to work and try to sell lumber. And that's really how it all began. And we still have that table today. It's a huge landmark for the start of our business.
Right. So every big company started in a garage. Yours started the kitchen table, eh?
Ours started in a kitchen table in Brampton, Ontario. It's something that we love doing. We were very motivated, even though, at the beginning we used a lot of our, competitors, our friends' lumber yards, and they were building loads from their places for us. We'd mix and match different things from all over the place using our friends' lumber yards to do what we did to get started.
So you mentioned, working with close friends, close partners in the industry. You guys started Tropical Forest Products at a pretty young age, relatively speaking. What was the response that you got from people? Was it really supportive? Was it, you guys are crazy? What was the feedback that you got?
So starting Tropical was very mixed. We were 24 years old when we opened up Tropical Forest Products. So it was our customers from U.S. were extremely supportive. And we got the slack, from our competitors in the industry. You know what I mean? You have your sort of unfriendly competition, you know what I mean, that wants to bring you down. But at the end of the day, this business, there's so much less of that than there are people that want to see you be successful. There's so many more companies and businesses that want to see you grow because, as much as I could be the next biggest competition for somebody, I could also be their biggest customer as well.
Right.
So I have to shout out to this industry. Like, it was really nice. There's so many people. We had zero credit. Everything that we had, we put it into the business, and we didn't even have money to pay for our next month's rent. You know what I mean? That's just the way it was. And, we had people like from Bailey. I remember when I called up Ed White at Bailey, I said, when he was at Wagner, I said, listen, like, I don't know when I could pay you, but, we're going to pay you. But if you could send me some lumber, that'd be great. And he's like, yeah, no problem, Jordan. Like, he sent me about $200,000 worth of lumber the next week.
That's great.
I mean, the support was unreal. We had tons of people that were supporting us and helping us get to where we need to be.
So, it sounds like you quickly, you started at the kitchen table, but you guys actually quickly moved into your first warehouse space in about 6 months in?
Yeah, about 6 months in, we opened up the company in January, and by June we had our first warehouse.
So tell me about that first warehouse. I heard that it was a converted auto parts.
Yeah, it was an auto parts store, and it was filled with oil all over the place. We had to completely gut it out. It was me, Jassi, and Justin who did all the renovations. I mean, we ripped out old carpets. We made it look nice. I mean, we did everything. We did it all hands on, and we tried to make it look as best as we could. And that's pretty much what it was. There was no private offices, all open space, and that's what it was. There was just our 3 desks there, and a little office space, and then the rest was all warehouse.
So, I think a lot of people speak, they look back fondly on startup days, right? It's a lot of hard work. Everything moves fast, but it's fun. So when you look back on that first 6 months when it was the 3 of you and, hey, you had your desks sitting next to each other, what are your memories of those early days?
So, the best memories that I have was we bought a bunch of Nerf guns, and we would just have these all-out wars in our office between me, Jassi, and Justin. And, that to me was it was a good reminder that, we were having fun doing what we were doing. There was a time to be serious, and then there was also time to have our fun. And I loved, that we took it seriously, but not too seriously. There was still that, like, we made our office space, we didn't want it to be like that work space only. We wanted to have fun there. You know what I mean? And that's what I miss the most is just, and the pride as well. Whenever we pulled into that first warehouse, you knew that, like, hey, this is something that came from nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we definitely enjoyed our time there, but we did grow extremely fast. And so those memories of that place were not that much because we changed so many warehouses multiple times in a very short span of time.
Right. So that, I think that, you can almost call it astronomical growth for you guys. Tell me about how that came about. Is it something that you guys had a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan and you said, we want to do this, this, and this and meet these milestones? Or is it just, sort of the drinking from a fire hose metaphor where things just kind of came your way?
We kind of had a budget plan. Our first year, I had budgeted to maybe do about $4 million in sales, but that $4 million ended up turning into 10, and the second year, we wanted to do, we said maybe 15 was going to be okay, but we ended up doing 25. So having that, it was, we were all learning this, right? It was all a new experience for us. And that's where, our partner, Chris, who came in, really set the pace for us because we didn't know what we were doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Great at selling lumber, great at buying lumber, but everything else was just a complete disaster, And so we were constantly, trying to solve problems that we didn't really have the answers to because we didn't really have the skills in order to solve those problems.
So you mentioned, that brings up kind of my next point that I really want to dig into. And, you mentioned Chris, and that was the lumber decking merger, correct? Yes. So tell me about how that came about and, why you saw, you sort of touched on it already, but why you saw value in that merger and how that kind of transformed your company.
Yeah, so Chris was actually my mentor at Goodfellow. So I had a very good relationship with him. I sold a lot of the products that he was buying for Goodfellow. So, we were always in communication on so many different things. And so when I left, Goodfellow and I started Tropical Forest Products, he was still there for, I think, a couple of years. And then he decided to leave and form lumber decking. And so there was one day he was coming back from Miami, and I just said, "Hey, Chris, like, we have a hotel across the street from our warehouse." I said, "Why don't you come down and, come grab a drink and we'll talk." And we sat there, I think it was like for 7 hours, talking about things that I want for tropical and things that he wants for lumber decking. And it kind of just made sense at the end of that conversation. From that day on, we just merged both the companies together.
Right.
We just said we'd rather do it together.
Yeah, I love all those stories. You hear a lot of it about, this business was built on a handshake at a dinner, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty much how Tropical was done. I mean, he loved the name that we chose because of the products that we like to sell. I mean, we were always, even for myself, domestic species, I always sold the niche domestic species like, curly maple and that kind of stuff, Cortison Rift. But I really love selling exotic wood, so I kind of wanted to stick with that. But it was still a problem because as we bought more domestic lumber and we're just always called tropical forest products, you know what I mean? It didn't really have a good ring. So now I just say like TFP wood when I'm cold calling just to make sure that they know that, hey, we're not just tropical forest products. You know what I mean? We do carry an extensive line of different types of products as well.
So, what do you think Chris brought to the table the most? In some of the articles I read, you talk about his mentorship and his leadership, but sort of more of the tangible assets. What do you think he brings to that partnership?
So Chris, I mean, really his leadership is, really the main point that we know you could touch on, but he came from years of experience of being in the lumber industry as well, right? Like managing skills, like, I'm not, back when I was 24, it was really tough. And, it was when I got to 26 and when he came on board, there was a sense of calming. Not everything was a big deal. We were still young. We were still learning. We were trying to figure out everything. And he came in with, a ton of experience to be like, hey guys, like this is how you're supposed to structure things. Where do you guys want to get to? And he is phenomenal with the bank. You know what I mean? Bringing in funding. We wouldn't be able to grow the way we did if it weren't for him, Right. Because like I said, as much, as I got to give him most of the credit because I'm just a really okay average salesman and lumber buyer. You know what I mean? He really put structure to our business and really showed us the potential of where we're able to get to.
So growth, I think, is the next thing I want to talk about because, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Tropical Forest Products has been in business now for about 7-8 years?
7 years, yeah.
And in that 7 years, you've grown from the kitchen table to 5 locations? I mean,
so now we have 3 locations. We have
3?
one in South Carolina. We have 2 in Toronto, and we do have some other locations that we store lumber in the West Coast and stuff like that. But 3 are under our building's name, and others we just pay them monthly rent to store our lumber.
Okay, so tell me how you got in a relatively short period of time from start to having these 3 locations and a presence in other big major markets. I mean, what do you attribute that growth to?
So I think for us, between myself, Jassi, and Justin, which we call ourselves the original 3, and then with Chris the original 4, because it was just us 4 for a very, very long time. And I think we've always maintained the same type of attitude throughout business. We are here to provide our customers the best service that we possibly can. Everybody knows everybody in this industry. We're not doing anything different than somebody else besides from what lengths are we willing to go to in order to make sure that our customers get the product that they need. We haven't changed that. That's been, our recipe for 7 years. And I think we built a good reputation. I think a lot of people in this industry are able to count on us. And when we say we're going to do something, we're going to make sure that that is seen throughout the end. You know what I mean? We never cancel any POs. If we say something that we're going to do, we're going to do it. And I think that has always been, my number one thing when I want to open up Tropical Forest Products, that the customers are always right. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, if you see that you're getting abused by, some different customers, okay, it's better to just drop them. But this business is an honest business. You know what I mean? There is problems with lumber sometimes. just fix them. You know what I mean? If you're going to count pennies and lose dollars, then it just becomes an even bigger problem. So we always look forward to the next order. Then whatever issues with this one, we'll take care of it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of the companies appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everyone I talk to, that's, from my own personal experience in building my company to, everyone I talk to, whether it's why do you like this industry or why has your business been successful, the common thread is always, it's the people factor, it's the honesty, it's just the fact that this industry as a whole is a stand-up industry.
Yeah.
There's a lot more deals done over handshakes than with lawyers and contracts.
Absolutely. I mean, some of my biggest orders I've ever got, has been a 10-second phone call, and then it hangs up, and then you're shipping, $200,000-$300,000 worth of lumber, and you're just, that's just the way this place is. You know what I mean? And even for us too, the amount of support that we've had from, I call them my fellow colleagues in this industry, has been nothing but the most pleasant experience, because there's so many people that have always been there to support us in order to see us get to where we want to grow to.
Sure. So one of the things that I found really interesting that you guys have done over the last couple of years, and it's particularly interesting to me being in the branding space, is creating black label lumber. So, I mean, effectively, you guys have branded a commodity product, more or less. So tell me about, how that idea came about, and it seems like it's been really successful for you guys.
It has been very successful. There's a gentleman that works with us, Brian Lotz. He comes from a huge background of working with tropical decking, and we've always kind of wanted to set ourselves different from other people, right? And creating that brand, because there are other Ipe brands in the market, you know what I mean? So for us, it was like, okay, if you have X amount of brands that are there, why can't we have our own? You know what I mean? And if we were going to do it, how can we do it better than everybody else? So it was a very long time to do our research and go over things and seeing what the customer wants in order for us to be able to provide them something with that we knew was going to be better in the market.
Right.
And, since that all happened, we built almost a $50 million tropical decking. We've done, for the last 3 years, about $50 million a year in tropical decking because of that.
Wow. Yeah. So you guys just released a new product recently, correct? The thermal product?
Yeah. So we're going to be having our own thermally modified AOS, which is what we're calling our thermally modified mahogany, ash, poplar. We're going to have all different kinds of pines. You know what I mean? We're going to be making like a cladding product and even a decking product, and we're going to be having that available at our place all the time.
So is the kind of the impetus to build that brand, is it based on the success of black label lumber?
Absolutely. I mean, we see the trend that's going in the thermally modified woods. A lot of people are getting involved. A lot of people are wanting to do it. So that was another thing, is like, how are we going to be able to, have our own niche in this type of market and sell a product that people are going to want from us?
I see. So, one of the things I kind of like to build into each episode is sort of a reflection section. So we've talked about how you got here. Now, looking back, obviously you guys started at a young age. So what were you, when you started Tropical Forest Products, what do you think were your biggest learning curves?
I would say my biggest learning curve, that I learned, probably the last 2 years, is biting off more than you could chew. Tropical Forest Products was growing too fast for our own good. And, having the right key players in place doing the important jobs, that could either make or break a business. And we saw, huge mistakes that we've made by not, crossing our T's and dotting our I's, that, thank God, we're here. I mean, after the COVID boom, there was a huge crash, and a lot of people suffered in this industry. There's a lot of people who shut down and closed, and, we took a massive hit as well. But giving up was never an option. You know what I mean? We love this business so much that, it didn't matter how many millions we lost. The same thought was waking up every day and seeing how many more millions you're able to make in order to cover that and cover the people that you owe money to. You know what I mean? And there's, that sense of for us, we worked so hard to get to where we were that it wasn't an option to try to give up. You know what I mean? A lot of people lost a lot of money, but for us, where we, like, everything that we made in Tropical Forest Products got put back into the company. Nothing was kept aside for a rainy day. We just kept reinvesting, buying more lumber, which, when the crash happened, it burned us. You know what I mean? But we made that mistake once. We're never going to make that mistake again. And it's just, now having a more diversified portfolio with the type of product lines that we're carrying and making sure that we're doing things that work for us and not things that work against us.
Right. Yeah. So, now it's sort of the flip side of the big learning curves and the challenges. What do you, being in your position of starting a company at such a young age, do you think having sort of that youthful, different or fresh perspective helped you look at things differently and kind of change the way you guys operated?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for us, we came in like a wrecking ball, right? People were questioning, we started running ads and everything like that, spending a lot of money. And, we wanted to get, involved and, do as much as we can. But at the same time, is like, those were also very young mistakes as well. You know what I mean? We should have really took the time to pre-plan a lot of things instead of just saying yes to everything that came to our door.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were like, yes men almost. Anybody was like, oh, you want to do this? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Why not? Let's try it out. So I think now looking back, and things that we're doing things differently now is really taking the time to observe everything that gets put on our doorstep first and seeing, hey, is this really the best thing for us? Instead of just like one person just agreeing to it, having, the talks with, our main management team and saying, okay, is this something that we all are all on board on? Yes, no, okay, great, move forward.
Right.
Before it was just like literally just saying yes to everything.
So one of the other things that really stood out to me in the articles I was reading is you mentioned sort of the culture that you've built at Tropical Forest Products. It's not I think in this day and age, there's a lot of, in the startup business, there's a lot of like the hustle culture, right? You always got to be working. You always have to hustle and grind. One of the things that you mentioned is really focusing on the well-being of your employees and sort of focusing on investing in the people. So tell me more about that and how that's paid off for your company.
Yeah. I mean, just like in anything, if you have people that are going to work and they hate showing up there, you're just wasting money. You're not getting the best out of that employee. So, we kind of just said, like, if we created an environment that people love their job, right? They come in there and they love doing what they're doing, or having that talk saying, hey, I'm seeing that you're not really good at this, but you maybe want to try something else and maybe see if that will work for you. That's the way we kind of develop things in order to see who's good at what's the skills that they have that could, be good for something that, they want to do, instead of putting them something that they don't want to do. And for that, we've had so many people that, wanted to learn how to grade, and now they're graders for us. They actually enjoy piling lumber. So now they pile lumber. I had people, who came on the sales team that were like, I don't really know if this is good for me. Maybe I want to work on the inventory team. And now they're there. So it's really just that constant communication with our fellow colleagues, asking them, hey, what makes you happy? What do you see yourself doing best in? And that has, kept everybody. We don't really have that many employees that leave or quit.
Right.
Since we started, everybody who we've added in has stayed on board.
So, we're early in the year. It's January, I guess February now. What are you looking forward to the most this year? Is it the new thermal product? What do you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we were excited for this year. We decided, what our game plan was going to be, and I'm excited to see that plan get put into action. We're just coming off of a year of pain. You know what I mean? We went through some shit the last year and a half, and I think a lot of people did. And we're very fortunate, to be open, to be still up and running. We fought hard. It's probably last year was the toughest year of my life, I think everybody's lives that worked at TFP, because failure was not an option. You know what I mean? We lost a lot of money, but we worked hard to make sure that we're still here. So we did a lot of that, grinding and hard work in 2023. And, we're on track. We had a phenomenal month of January, and we're projecting to continue going, as best as we can. And I'm just excited that, we learned those lessons. We learned, some very valuable lessons to never make those same mistakes again. And I'm just excited to, continue doing what we've been doing and just have another great year and just finally have something on track with vision and, less gunslinging, something more, calculated. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. We've matured a lot, so
right.
we learned a lot of hard lessons, and now it's time to, put our plan in action and have it concrete.
So it sounds like you're feeling pretty optimistic about the year ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, the lumber business is, we had an okay year last year too, right? I think a lot of people, markets were down and a lot of the pricing, went down, but now pricing is going back up. And it really just becomes, once again, is, our instinct of, buying something low and waiting a little bit because it's going to get hot. And, that's, what we're good at. That's what we do. So you're looking at the market trends and, trying to stay on top of that and doing it in a smart way, that's where I see our success for 2024.
So, in terms of what you're looking forward to, obviously you guys are exhibiting here at the IHLA convention. I know this is one of my favorites to come to every year. What are you looking forward to most about the convention this week?
I'm the number one thing I was looking forward to seeing you, seeing your pretty face.
There you go.
But no, I'm excited to see all my friends in this industry, my colleagues, people who've helped us, for these past 7 years. It's always a good time to come out here and see everybody. Like, I'm going to be a daddy in, 4 weeks from now. So I don't know how much traveling. Thank you. I don't know how much traveling I'm going to be able to do over the next couple of months, but coming here and being able to see everybody and, go out for lunches, dinners, seeing everybody, asking how everybody's doing, checking up on them, on a face-to-face level. I think that's what I'm excited most for. And the IHLA just does a terrific job year after year of bringing in new people, new companies into this, convention, and you get to meet a lot of new faces that you didn't meet before. So, I mean, IHLA for me is my favorite convention to go to.
Great. Yeah, agreed. I think it's definitely up there as one of my top 2 favorites. So, I think our mission with this podcast is to find interesting stories in the hardwood industry, whether that's interesting people or interesting companies. So whose story should we tell next?
Is there's a lot of interesting characters, but the one who I think is pretty interesting would be, and his story would be Dallas Workis from Tampa International.
All right.
He's a bright young guy who just absolutely fell in love with this industry, and I think he's done a great job. He's one of my great customers, and I truly love him dearly. I mean, he's become a great friend of mine, and the way he's brought himself into this industry to know everybody, and he's the type of guy that if people are having a conversation, he'll step right in and introduce himself to make sure that people know who Dallas Workis is. And he's a great dude, and I think he definitely should be on this podcast.
Awesome. We'll have to track him down. Well, thanks again, Jordan, for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Yours is definitely a story I wanted to tell early on in the life of this podcast, so I appreciate it. It's good to see you.
It's always good to see you too, Ben. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Take care. Have a good week.
All right. You too, buddy.